you saw the headline. There had not been names injured. Very sad situation. One injured, one dead in a shooting in Camdenton over Thanksgiving. And as far as I know, no names had been released. I did get to talk with Hunter Davis, who's 24 years old, and he was actually the one shot. And I was able to talk with him, and he gave me his blessing and shared some information. And so now I'm going to share his account of what exactly took place. So 24-year-old Hunter Davis shot in the back by a 12-gauge shotgun on Thanksgiving, and this is his account. So Hunter had a good relationship with his girlfriend, Casey DeVore's dad, Warren DeVore. According to Hunter, Warren liked Hunter and was happy that his daughter had found a good man. He even went as far as calling his ex-wife, Warren, to say, hey, I'm really happy that Casey's found this guy. Okay, Casey and her dad also had a great relationship, according to Hunter. So how did this tragic occurrence transpire? Everyone's probably asking. So Hunter told me about a month ago, him and Casey were living in Oklahoma and started discussing moving up to the lake to take care of Warren. Now, Warren's health was declining, including mental issues. He had lung issues and overall very poor health. They had visited and saw how bad his condition had gotten and how bad this health had been digressing. So at that time, Chris, they were considering relocating to the lake seriously after seeing him. And so fast forward at 2 weeks, they're here for Thanksgiving, still contemplating, figuring out if they're going to move down. They live in Oklahoma. And on Thanksgiving Day, Casey and Hunter were at Warren's house, and they were having a good time prepping dinner. Casey was in the kitchen cooking, and Warren was watching football in the living room. And Hunter was going back and forth between the kitchen and the living room. And according to Hunter, the mood was light, things were good, and Warren and Hunter were cracking jokes and having a great time. But then something happened, according to Hunter. It was a random, nasty remark from Warren as Hunter was heading back into the kitchen. Hunter had told him to go F himself. Casey and Hunter thought maybe it was an episode because they said that happened with Warren. Maybe it was just a moment, so they let it slide. Fast forward 20 to 30 minutes, and Hunter was in the kitchen sitting next to Casey on a stool as Casey was prepping food, and Hunter hears a shotgun go off and then feels the pain in his back. Hunter realized he had just been shot point blank 9 foot away by a 12-gauge shotgun by his girlfriend's dad on Thanksgiving. At that time, he recalls hitting the floor, getting his phone out, and calling 911. And of course, Casey, she screamed and was in utter shock. Hunter says he was able to crawl on the floor and get out the back door, and he snuck out and got to a nearby neighbor's house while on the phone with a 911 operator. At this point, Hunter recalls hearing gunshot number 2, which he then told the 911 operator. Casey comes out of the house and is stating her dad had just committed suicide. Hunter's bleeding from the mouth and using the neighbor's house to press his back up against in an attempt to slow down the bleeding. With her boyfriend bleeding from his back and out of his mouth and witnessing what just happened with her father, one can understand that Casey was in absolute shock. Hunter, a former CNA at that point, he knew he must focus on his breathing and bleeding and sent Casey to get their dog from the yard. Luckily, the EMTs and first responders got on scene and got Hunter life-flighted to the University of Missouri in Columbia. How's he doing? One might ask. Well, he was shot with a bird shot.
Okay.
And there is pellet lodged just 1 inch from his pulmonary artery. The doctors told him that no surgery is actually going to be needed because the pellet could be left, and they hoped it would work itself out eventually. But if they tried to remove it, it'd be too big of a risk getting that close to his pulmonary artery. And he was discharged at 11 a.m. on Monday from the University of Missouri in Columbia. Currently, he's dealing with major pain in his right side and his torso, and he's going to be forced to walk with a cane. And additionally, he's having some issues with his equilibrium and his balance. And another major concern from the doctors were his lungs. Got shot in the back with a shotgun, even a bird shot, but his breathing is improved. And so their goal at this point in time, Hunter tells me, is to get back home to Oklahoma. Both Casey and Hunter's moms live there, and for Hunter, it's going to be a long road to recovery, between 6 and 12 months to be exact. This means no work for Hunter, who was courageous enough to speak with me in depth and give me his blessing for sharing his story. He says, these headlines we're seeing, they're inaccurate. We want to make sure people know what happened. And his message and Casey's message is we appreciate everyone that has kept us in their thoughts and prayers. We're also very appreciative of all the financial help on the GoFundMe page. We've got a long road ahead of us, and we just ask everyone to continue to keep me, Casey, and our family in your prayers. And as I mentioned, there is a GoFundMe account set up to help Hunter and Casey, who have each other, but as they've just encountered a Thanksgiving that most of us couldn't even fathom. So I encourage you, absolutely pray for Hunter and his recovery, and for Casey for supernatural peace and comfort at this time, as I urge also give if you can to this young couple who are now left with not only a long road to recovery, Chris, but the very reality of left with picking up the pieces of their now somewhat shattered life, because Hunter shared Casey and her dad were close. There wasn't an existing tension there from their account. It wasn't a situation where Hunter said his dad-in-law and him didn't get along, but his potential future father-in-law or his girlfriend's dad didn't get along. And they said they just chalked it up to maybe this was his out. Maybe this was the way he could finally go. This is only Hunter Davis's account of what he encountered on Thursday, November 24th, Thanksgiving 2023. Just a heartbreaking story, hard to make sense of.
Yeah, it's so tragic. Dad shoots the boyfriend in the back with a shotgun and then commits suicide. And daughter had to see everything. She saw her boyfriend shot and she saw her dad kill himself, apparently. If you can imagine living with that. It's just, it is kind of unbelievable to think about something like that happening in front of you. And there is a lot of confusion. I saw a post, I think from the daughter, Casey, is that her name, online somewhere, of her in the hospital room with her boyfriend. And she said something like, my father's mental illness finally caught up with him, or something like that. So it looked like she was, attributing it to mental illness with her father. Strange, in the original story, it said the man's girlfriend told officers that she and her boyfriend were in the kitchen when an argument ensued. That almost makes it sound like it was a domestic argument, but according, to the daughter and the son, and that wasn't the way it happened. So it's just kind of crazy, but it's all so incredibly tragic having to deal with that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And, think about, you hear about this stuff and see this stuff. And I didn't know how to exactly reach out and ask questions, but I didn't want to share a story and be insensitive without correct information. And I wanted to give them, so I appreciate Hunter for talking with me, giving me that information. And, we encourage you guys, pray for them, lift them up. And if you can, donate. I mean, if going through that's not enough, during Thanksgiving, then to be without work and back to Oklahoma for a year. Really tough circumstances, and they could probably use a break.